Hey everybody, it's Better Bible Habits today, and I have this cool little card I'm filling out of all the times that we're reading the Bible, and then we're asking God for wisdom in the Psalms and in the Proverbs. Then we're investing time with God by reading a psalm in the evening, which I know for me, continuing to read Psalm 25 throughout this week has been so helpful. Then we began to nurture our faith, right, by reading some verses in Matthew about how said God would be with us. He also said it in Exodus. And then, so it kind of like bookmarks it, right? So the same thing that you learn in the New Testament that Yeshua says, that Jesus says, is the same stuff that he's repeating that he's heard from his Father in heaven, right? That we learn in the Torah. And this is the week when we start the Ten Commandments reading, because we're in the section of Jethro on Sunday. But today I'm holding on to this cool little thing to show you something wild. This is the first 5 books of the Bible, the way Jewish people read them. And this is a decorative one, not the big gigantic ones that are actually made of lambskin. But I'm using this to show you how it works. You open up, and the scroll is there. And as you read through the scroll, from one end to the other, the sequence of the Bible is, you roll it back, and then you read it from the beginning and roll it all the way through. And I just challenge you to start to read the Bible that way, even when you're reading about from the Gospels, or a really good way to do it is to read from Luke through to the end of Acts, because they had the same writer. I'm saying all that to say this, that the first 5 books of the Bible, they are a scroll that rolls and unrolls, rolls and unrolls. And that scroll has carried our people for, 1,400 years before Messiah even came. And then Messiah came, and he revealed those truths to us and what they meant. And he taught people the Torah. But between the Torah being given and Messiah coming, there's all these books. And they're in 2 different categories, prophets and writings. And it acts like a divine intersection, because the prophets speak the word of the Lord to someone who's in the midst of a difficult circumstances, and people are not hearing God's voice. They've turned against his ways, and he's trying to get through to them. And then the writings are the history books that tell you the things that people learned. So when I think it's important to study, or to at least read some of the portions of the books in both the prophets and the writings, it's because they are intersections that prove that the instruction that God gave to Moses through Moses' hand to the children of Israel. Those truths are still alive today. All 10 of those commandments still work. All 10 of them. And we're going to learn about them this weekend. But in this part of history, I think the thing that is so hard to understand about the Bible is that why would we need to read all that stuff between the Torah and then the New Testament writings? Why does that matter? Well, because if you ever learned anything by doing it right the first time, the funny part is if you do learn by doing right the first time, then you really don't need any help from anybody and you get arrogant. I know, I've done it. Or there are things that you realize later you never really understood what you learned until you failed at it. Well, the Bible is full of people falling away from God and needing to return to him. And so if you read the Bible in a more Jewish friendly way, it is to read the Proverbs in the prophets in one section and the writings in the other. So it goes Torah, and then these 2 sections that one is about the word and one of them is about the timeline. And then Yeshua appears to us, right? God comes in the flesh and spends his love, sheds his blood for us. But the removal of sins and knowing that you're sinning against God, those things come from understanding what God's parameters are. Not the rules and crazy stuff people put around the parameters, just the parameters, like love the Lord your God and love one another. Those didn't come from the New Testament. Those came from the Old Testament, and then they are reiterated in the New to bring it to fullness. So I want to tell you about the last book in the writings is Second Chronicles. That's the end of the Jewish Bible. I know they blend the prophets and writings in most Christian Bibles, but in Jewish Bibles, which don't have a New Testament and don't talk about Yeshua usually, ours does. There is to understand the sequence is very important, and that last chapter of Second Chronicles is history worth reading today, because it's about how, the word gets rediscovered by a little king named Josiah. And Josiah, I think he was 8 years old when he was made king. But anyway, they find the Torah scroll again. So they've fallen away from God. And this King Josiah finds it. And he rules a very, very short time. But he does follow the Torah. He celebrates Passover. He gets the people on board with it. But you know what? His sons and descendants thereafter didn't walk the way Josiah did. Even though they had the word returned to them, they wouldn't obey. And defiance always leads. Rebellion and defiance to God always ends in tragedy. So we read the history books not to point out how hard God is on everybody, because the fact is, we read those things to show how easy it is, even if you have the word in your hands, to figure that your way is better than his way. But the Bible actually says, my thoughts are higher than your thoughts. My ways are higher than your ways, declares the Lord. That's one of the prophets. And when you compare that to what's written in the writings, when it says that they walked away from God and they would not follow him, I want to just read you a piece of it, because I don't think you realize how serious it is to say this. It says, one of Josiah's descendants, was 25 years old when he became king, in verse 5 of 2 Chronicles 36, last chapters of the Old Testament. And he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. He did evil in the sight of Adonai his God. Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon marched against him and bound him with bronze chains to take him to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar also took some of the vessels of the house of Adonai and put them in the temple in Babylon. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim, the detestable things he did, and all was found against him, behold, they are written in the book of Israel and Judah. That king, his son, reigned in his place. It goes on and on about, just look at these words. He did evil in the sight of Adonai. Please remember that the fear of the Lord means that you're going to do what pleases God. Do what pleases God. And if that means to love God first and love your neighbor as yourself, and to not steal and to not bear false witness, those are ways that you honor the God that you trust. Because God disciplines the son that he loves, right? So when God corrects you, it's because he loves you and he wants your life to be beautiful. Please don't let defiance keep you from the wonderful, beautiful life God has for you. Stay in touch and go back and read that psalm again and again out loud, Psalm 25, and let God sink it into your spirit and strengthen you from within. Be strong, and be strengthened today. Have a great day.